I hope you love your life today. I'm loving my life. Things are going great. Who could complain on a day like today? Things are getting better all the time. We got it every day walking with Christ. Good morning, Maxis, and God bless you all. Good morning, every day. Quentin, what's up, my man? Good morning, Tommy. Tommy, the book is going to be released probably tonight or tomorrow. So anyone who signed up on email to be on the waiting list for the Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management, you should get your copy tomorrow. Still kind of a draft, so it's going to be a digital copy. You might find mistakes. I've had a lot of editors look at it, but you never know. Things fall through the cracks. It's only 40-something pages, real easy read. Lots of people will tell you, you can't put it down. It's going to be the best book you ever read, and it's going to be perfect for the holidays, so you're going to love it. Lots of people saying it's going to be a hit, which I'm happy about. Ben, good morning all. Matt, good morning team. Let's wake and break. We're breaking up big time. Morning, wake and break indeed, Hoddle T. Austin, we're going to be talking, good morning, friends. We'll be talking about Kraken today. The simulation is just winking at us. Winking with blinking, right? Good morning, all. Thinking of Kraken, seems Jesse Powell is being double dipped by SEC. We're going to talk about it. We love it. It's great. It's funny. Well, I don't think it's funny for Jesse, but Tommy, conversely, smelling the NPCs, Bitcoin is waking up. Indeed, indeed. Good morning, Christine. Hope you're doing great. David, good morning from East Texas. Beautiful place, that East Texas. Robert, Moscow time turns, episode 415. I think I might be off by a couple, but we're going with that. Good morning, Bitcoiners. Good morning, Bud. Good morning, Nick. What a time to be alive. Indeed, Bitcoin Graffiti has brought the coffee. Good morning, Accelerationist, says P-Man. Daniel Renault, giving away the plot here. There is indeed a sun, and we have coffee and Bitcoin's running. I'll let you know right now. I'll just tell you. I'll preempt y'all. Mensa Musa, welcome to Florida, where Bitcoin's vibrant essence, like a golden sunrise, paints our existence. Love it, King Mensa. You're a poet, my man. Howdy, Kevin. Beaumatin, good morning, Bitcoiners. How can I get that book, Every Day Walking with Christ? Go to nolanbarley.com and hit the wait list, and you'll get the email. That's the first way to get it. But if you don't feel like doing that and you don't have an email, then tomorrow it should be available on my website as a link. So you'll just be able to click it and take a copy. So there we go. I Pavloved into making a fresh cup. Where's my... Pause. I forgot my coffee. 1 second. Very unconscious of me too, my man. 1 second, guys. Thanks for your patience, team. Sometimes this stuff, it's the first time that's ever happened. In 415 episodes, I've never forgotten my coffee. It was made, I just forgot to take it off the thing. It was a fresh cup. Sometimes, I'm here for Moscow time and it's like a half cup or a quarter cup, which is fine because I don't usually drink it during the show, but we got it. We're good. Sunrise up. Sunrise Tech working perfect as expected. Money Tech also working perfect as expected. So whatever, let's talk about what's new. There we go. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Now let's get started with some Moscow time, right? We got to get the fakest news. We've got some incredible fake news today. Oh, but let's start, right? Yesterday was the president's... What's going on here? 1 more second. I'm not on Rumble, you're saying? Aye. Give me 1 second. Apparently Rumble is not functioning. And we don't want that. Is anyone watching on Rumble? Can anyone tell me if things are happening the way they ought to? Unable to connect, it's saying. Aye. Oh, maybe this will work. All right. Offline, it's saying title set up, supported, save. Maybe it'll work. If anyone can just let me know if it is happening over on Kraken, on Rumble, that would be a big help. My wife is telling me it's not happening. There you go. The anticipation is killing me. Austin says, all right. Tell me if it's working on stupid Rumble. I had some days I have a feeling, like it's just a feeling it's not going to work. Okay, it worked. Okay, good. I clicked a number button and we're working. Okay, good. Thank you, Mrs. Count BTC. All right, Austin, you're going to get your wish. Here we go. We have some amazing ones. You know you're in trouble when you say, maybe this will work. Yeah, P-Man, yeah. It worked. All right. So it was Joe Biden's birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, leader of the free world. You're great. He's only 81, okay? So he was born in 1942. 1942, and he's the president. So he did actually on his birthday have some words for all of us because he gave a bit of a talk yesterday. It was the day where there's a few times in the year where the US president must speak to the public. There's no getting around it. And one of those is when you have to pardon the turkey. They did it yesterday. I don't know if you guys know of this amazing American tradition. So Thanksgiving is this week, right? It's in 2 days. So it's if you're not American, you didn't know this, it is the biggest holiday in America. It's the day where there's the most travel. It's the day where most families get together. Christmas is up there too, obviously, but if you didn't know, this is sort of the beginning of the Christmas season in America. So even Canadians aren't aware of this. Even Canadians, it's one of the few major differences between Canadians and Americans. Thanksgiving to Canadians is like a long holiday from a college weekend. In Quebec, it's zero. It's just a long weekend. Some people do a turkey and blah, blah, blah. And some Canadian people definitely do a turkey. So it's not a zero copy, but it's nowhere near the significance that the US holiday is, because the US holiday ushers in the Christmas season. So from now on in the United States, it's Christmas parties, it's this, it's that, it's the Christmas season, right? It starts now. So one of the traditions of this great holiday is the US president must pardon a turkey. So this turkey will not be killed for Thanksgiving. So he pardons it, right? So uses his power of the president to pardon the turkey. And so he must give a speech. So he gave a speech yesterday. And this is what our 81-year-old president, the leader of the free world, said about the two turkeys. You get two. One of them gets eaten. One of them gets pardoned, right? He goes, "You can say even this harder than getting a ticket to the Renaissance tour. Rip Britney's tour. She's down and it's kind of warm in Brazil right now." All right. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. But not everyone's happy about this big thing in America and Thanksgiving. And we're learning from The Nation, right? The Nation has a few things to say about it, right? Here's their headline in The Nation. "Should America keep celebrating Thanksgiving?" Sean Sherman argues that we need to decolonize Thanksgiving, everyone, while Chase Eyes calls for replacing Thanksgiving with a Truthsgiving. Okay, we're done with it. We're done with no more Thanksgiving, guys. Truthsgiving. This is actually going to come up in our story later on today. It's Moscow time, but it's also something that we probably don't disagree with. So here's a headline. "People who stuck by UK COVID rules have worst mental health." And they can't even write it. Have worse, idiots. "Trauma of pandemic having lasted impact on people's mental health 3 years on," research reveals. So if you followed the rules, you're probably depressed and having mental issues now. Only those who disobeyed survive, remember. Okay, now, as you know, the Media Matters and X case is live, right? He filed the lawsuit yesterday, but Wall Street Silver has gone back and looked at what Media Matters published on Elon Musk in the past year. It's amazing. This is our last little bit of Moscow time, all right? So this is actually what they're saying is an indictment of Elon Musk, all right? So here's what it is. Ready? First, This is what they actually published. It's not just what someone at Media Matters said. They published this to make a case against Elon Musk over the past year. So this is published a little while ago. So here's what they say. This is why they have to be shut down X. Musk agreed with right-wing attacks on mainstream media. Oh my God. Musk expressed support for Ian Miles Chong's belief that mainstream media outlets are actively upset about Twitter's new direction under Musk's leadership. Oh my God. He agreed with someone who was criticizing Elon Musk. Oh, what a jerk. So someone who criticized him and someone stood up for him and he agreed with him. What a seditious son of a bitch that Elon Musk is. Kill him. We get more. Musk agreed with Tim Young that CBS and the mainstream media more generally is biased. Oh my God. Elon Musk said the mainstream media was biased. Hang him. Space drop him from his own rocket. Here we go. Musk agreed with Breitbart alum Raheem Kessam's claim that mainstream media are intent on destroying Twitter. He agreed that Media Matters and the entire censorship industrial complex wants to shut him down. He agreed with that. Can you believe it? Can you believe he agreed with people who observed that that people were trying to shut him down? What a fucking asshole. It gets worse. We're not even done his infringements on the censorship industrial complex. It gets worse. Musk and Chong exchanged similar views on supposed censorship by the mainstream media. Okay, they get into the details here. On November 11th, Musk tweeted, as Twitter pursues the goal of elevating citizen journalism, media elite will try everything to stop that from happening, Chong replied. The media elite wants a monopoly on the truth, and citizen journalism threatens that narrative. Can't have that. So they bully corporations and social media companies into doing their censoring for them by calling it all disinformation. And here's what Musk said to that, guys. He said, true. Oh my God. Oh my God, what a jerk. Okay, we got two more. We're not done. Media Matters published this. They published this. All right. Musk, guess what he did now? He didn't just agree with right-wing accounts. Okay, so that was where he agreed with right-wing accounts, right-wing racist accounts. Now, here's when he interacts with them, because it's not just agreeing with them, he interacts with them, right? So Musk interacted with right-wing accounts that praised the publication of the Twitter files. Holy shit. So he spent $40 billion on a thing, and then someone published stuff, and he said it was good, and he interacted with the content. What? I mean, have you ever seen a case of worse behavior than this? It doesn't exist. This is egregious like I've never seen. Let me read it. Musk agreed with the Hodge twins' baseless claim that the media covered up the Twitter files. Oh my God. And he even went back and forth with them. Jesus. Musk interacted with Judicial Watch President Tom Fenton multiple times about the Twitter files. What a jerk. What a jerk. So who would ever believe that there's a conspiracy against them? Who would believe that the system isn't totally fair and amazing, right? Who would believe that? Who? So now Linda Yasserino, who's taken over CEO of X, and a lot of people saying, she was heavily criticized when he first put her in the job. Oh, she's a WEF stooge, right? You see people saying that about Javier Milei now, by the way, right? Apparently, here's something you all have to know. I don't trust the WEF, okay? And I'm not like going to the WEF thing, but I've been dealing with them for a long time, in a sense, right? So if you've noticed, CoinDesk sold yesterday. CoinDesk has kept a desk or whatever at WEF for years now. That was partly due to my work. I was insistent that we go to Davos, not to like take them seriously. In my era, it was to laugh at them, right? We were going to go and punk them and prank them and try and get kicked out and make a scene and blah, 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 blah. Not like annoying protesters. We were trying to be a little ironic and fun and right? So, we tried that approach and it was okay. But when the way the WEF operates, so I've seen it in Canada, for example, they'll say, oh, Pierre Poliver, who might take over from Trudeau, was a WEF stooge, right? Because he was on the website. And then also Javier Milei, when he was younger, spoke at WEF. Therefore, he is also a WEF stooge. That's not really how it works. The WEF is really an event, and that's why I studied them closely as someone who was running CoinDesk's consensus event for years and the Bitcoin Magazine event. You look at business models around events. And so I studied them very closely. All they did was charge big companies a huge fee as a membership in order to help craft the agenda. And that's how people get on stage. And they take all, that doesn't take anyone, but when CoinDesk was set to go there, I was asked to go speak. I didn't go in the end. I thought it was a dumb idea. So they didn't want to do it the way I wanted to do it. They wanted to do it at the last little bit that I was actually still at CoinDesk. When we got the deal to go and be press, they decided to like play it straight. And I wasn't really into that. So I went somewhere else. The WEF business. So what I'm saying is I would have ended up with my stupid face in one of those squares had I gone, right? And then people would say, oh, you're a WEF stooge, right? Well, that's not really the case, right? But anyway, you get Javier Milei criticized now, and people tried to criticize Linda Yaccarino because she had been in WEF. But look, after all this stuff, she's holding pretty steady. So you got to give her credit, right? You got to give her credit. And you got to say, well, maybe just because your face was on a website with WEF and you spoke at their event doesn't mean you believe all of their shit. Now, I don't trust people who are too associated with the WEF, of course, right? But Pierre Poliver, like the one they bring up, Stephen Harper spoke there once before when I worked for him. Now, I'd say he was the former Canadian Prime Minister before Trudeau. I'd say he's probably too far over on that. Like, we need consensus institutions to move forward in the world, all that gobbledygook pablum that some people still say. But he's turning into a based Bitcoiner too. His kid, by the way, Stephen Harper's kid, is a derivatives trader on the what do they call that? Luxor. So they trade like hash rate derivatives. He's like a super and he's like 20 something years old, 23 maybe. I saw him at the Canadian Bitcoin event and wondered if he remembered when I used to throw footballs with him on the lawn of the Prime Minister's house when he was like 4 years old or something like that, right? He didn't quite remember, but anyway, you'll probably see him at our event in Nashville, Tennessee in July. So Linda Yaccarino holding steady, and she says the following. She's now sort of exposing how Media Matters manipulated the data. We talked about it yesterday, right? They created fake accounts and basically tricked the algorithm in order to put the white supremacist content next to their sponsors in order to make it look like a scam. And apparently the odds were like 50 in 5.5 billion, right? So that's what it took. Now, I don't know if those numbers are exactly true, but that's what they've been saying. So here's what Linda says. If you know me, I'm committed to truth and fairness. Here's the truth. Not a single authentic user on X saw IBM's, Comcast, or Oracle's ads next to the content in Media Matters article. Oracle, by the way, did not join the legal case. Okay, just important, I think, right? So Oracle not in it. Only 2 users saw Apple's ads next to the content, at least one of which was Media Matters. Data wins over manipulation or allegations. Don't be manipulated. Stand with X, right? So Jack Possabeek underlining that. So here's where things get fun, though. Remember yesterday we talked about how the Missouri AG, potentially he's the person doing the state of Missouri versus Biden case, a really important case about freedom of speech, and it's at the Supreme Court now. It's about the federal government using private enterprise to censor people, so they're not allowed to delegate censorship powers because they don't have censorship powers. So a private enterprise without government direction is free to choose who uses their platform or not, but not at the behest of the government. That is the government conferring a power which it doesn't have onto an entity, and so it can't be done. So that's why the Missouri case is there. So someone was reminding Elon Musk yesterday that this type of fraud that we just saw with the Media Matters case, right, manipulating data, creating fake accounts, tricking the algorithm in order to present the situation, and then throwing up this kind of money, what that ends up creating is both a civil and a criminal offense. It was Stephen Miller who mentioned that, and the Missouri AG came in. But it wasn't just Missouri who did it. So the great state of Texas yesterday sued the federal government the same way, sued Media Matters, in the same way that Elon Musk did. So now you get both Texas and X going after the same entity. Amazing, right? Not only is it just Texas, though, you got to understand who's doing it. It is Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of the state of Texas, who was impeached this summer. Why was he impeached? Why? Well, we know the answer. Why? Because of Mike Benz. Mike Benz has been highlighting and following the money in US influence and censorship. And he's the person who says from the beginning that censorship and business interests are one and the same, right? So you can't actually understand censorship unless you understand the financial incentives behind different censorship aspects, and that everything in censorship is actually related to two American entities: the Yankee folks in New York, so that's the Wall Street Yankee money, and then the Texas cowboy money. So apparently the Uniparty has been created by two different factions over these years. It was the Texas oil, Texas cowboy folks. These are all sort of Mike Benz's euphemisms to explain what's happening, so that they don't go by these names. They aren't teams, right? But he can see these blobs have, let's call them poles of access or master nodes that help determine what happens after, right? So here's what he says, right? He says, you can basically think of DC politics pre-2016 as being the Yale wing of the CIA versus the Texas A&M wing of the CIA. When Trump took over the GOP, the Texas A&M wing jumped over to the Yale side, right? Which is what we can see with the Bushes, for example. The Bushes, a lot of people believe, were a uniparty carve-out that went inside of the Republican Party and infiltrated and changed it, right? So if you didn't know, Reagan never liked his vice president, George Bush. Now, George Bush had, Prescott Bush is the original, right? He was a New York State senator, part of a noblesse oblige group of Rockefellers and all these people. And he was around during World War II. And he was the one who helped his kid move down, George Bush, to Texas, to move the family influence to Texas. And so that's where he had both Jeb, right, low energy Jeb Bush, and George Bush. So George Bush ends up becoming the president, George Bush Jr. Jeb Bush, of course, tried, but got destroyed by Trump. But if you didn't know, Jeb has a kid named George Prescott. So he takes the name of the great-grandfather and the grandfather, and boom. And he's a bit of a Mexican because Jeb Bush's wife, speaks Spanish and all that. So he was set up to be the most important player in Texas. And before all of this, in the early Trump days, he actually was voted to the position of like natural resource controller or something. But it's like a very powerful position in Texas because basically you are the person they lobby through for energy licenses and digging and all of that stuff, right? So George Prescott Bush, Jeb's son, was the head of this. You get voted for this job, but it's a corrupt job. It's what the Texas Cowboys had been doing from the beginning, basically. And so this Texas A&M wing of the CIA. So George Prescott Bush, who I already noticed when he was in college, because he was sort of my contemporary in college. So we were paying attention to what was going on with the new Bush generation. And of course, he looked perfectly set up with the Mexican and the Spanish and all this stuff, right? So when I saw he was elected to this position, a lot of people were paying attention to it, right? So he goes after this position where he's the, person giving out the energy licenses and all that stuff. He goes to be the attorney general and gets destroyed. This guy Paxton wins. So what ends up happening is they try to impeach Paxton, put the Bush in, right? They try to cheat the Bush in. And so, but it didn't work out. So Paxton resisted the cheating and resisted the calls for impeachment and persisted. And now, because they didn't kill him, he's coming after them. So Texas yesterday opened up the battlefront, joining X. And at the same day, you had Greg Abbott endorsing Donald J. Trump for president of the United States of America, which makes the second largest state in America absolutely opposed now to whatever Newsom comes up with, or California. So this was an important win, let's say, yesterday for clarifying things. Texas, not some obscure thing on the board that we can't make sense of, like Georgia and some of these other places, right? Looking like they're actually taking sides in this fight, and they jump in like this, right? We're not done yet with the law cases. So Media Matters on the ropes, right? But who also comes yesterday? When people yesterday were talking about the Avengers, the right-wing Avengers, right? So you get the wheelchair Abbott and Paxton, right? Coming, they survived, they're here, and then Elon Musk attacking Media Matters. But who shows up? Donald Trump too. Who is Donald Trump suing now, right? So he just starts blasting everyone. He's going after the Guardian, the Hollywood Reporter, Miami Herald, Reuters, Rolling Stone, The Hill, Deadline Hollywood, Market Watch, Forbes, Axios, The Daily Beast, Gizmodo, Salon, New York Daily News, Newsweek, MSNBC, Mediaite, CNBC, the Daily Mail. So he just sues everyone yesterday. He's suing them all. Fuck them, right? Enough. So it looks like everyone who's involved in information laundering now has a major lawsuit on their hands, which we can't deny is a lot of fun, right? It's very funny. And when you think of, Texas, Trump, and even the piece on Paxton, right? You're starting to see that the information laundering process of something we talked about a lot a year ago, persuasion, we called it, right? How do you persuade people? How do you create a situation where a person in their own mind will come up with the answer, but that's the answer you want, and that's a form of brainwashing, right? So instead of telling people exactly what to think, often you can use a scenario where, and we've discussed many times with our whiteboard, our persuasion sort of matrix, right? It begins with this privileged moment. That's where the hypnotism happens, right? And that's where you inject certain information. And then you also inject the risk. So what you do is you give a piece of information, you give a threat or a risk, and you rely on the brain to do what you know it will do, which is anticipate survival, motivated for survival, and it will create a scenario given the information that's been presented of how to be safe and survive. And so this is where you get cognitive closure, and basically how hypnotism works, right? Jedi mind tricks work exactly that way, right? So that's how you can make someone think what you want, really, which we're going to learn more about in my book, The Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management, because that's what it's all about, right? I make a point in my book to say there are zero arguments in this book. There's nothing logical. Sometimes it won't even make sense, right? But it doesn't matter. You're not actually trying to make sense of things. You're trying to manipulate brains and wake people up, right? So it doesn't have to make sense. We're not in a realm of logic, right? We're in a realm of manipulation and magic and these kinds of things, right? Spells and counter spells and all that stuff. That makes the book a lot of fun, right? So the idea here, and Mike Benz has been talking about it for a while. He's talking about this as a vaccination, right? So he says at once Google, he wrote a thing on Foundation for Freedom Online today. Go read it. It's a brand new, hot off the presses from Mike Benz saying Google Jigsaw's plan to vaccinate your mind. So this is what persuasion and pre-bunking is all about, right? So he underlines it. He goes, this report pulls back the hood on pre-bunking and goes through the specific new techniques censorship insiders are developing to cognitively sterilize your skepticism of regime narratives, right? So this is actually happening. Right now, we've been on top of this for a long time. Right? Where's the whiteboard, Jose? We'll get it back. I don't have a whiteboard here, so I've been meaning to do it on the thing, but we'll get it back, Robert. We'll get it back. Honestly, though, and I mentioned before, Jose, the AI generation of images sort of took over that time I have in preparing the show every morning. So that's what happened, right? Anyway, no big deal. So the case of just understand when, yes, Bitcoin, we're going to get it, guys. We're going to get it. So persuasion and pre-bunking are really important tools because, again, brainwashing doesn't work by just hammering something in your head for it to repeat. That can work. That's sort of a blunt force way to brainwash someone, is just to repeat. But more effective and a quicker way to get there is to scare someone, use fear, right? Show a threat, and then provide the information where they can satiate their fear and remove it. And that's how you'll get cognitive closure. So that's kind of what's been going on here for a while, right? Now, the reason why this is important is because the persuasion around all of this Musk stuff and all of these, let's call them third parties, right, is sort of falling apart. And again, go back to what we read, about these trusted institutions that were supposed to remove these threats and be all, help us get safe. Well, remember what we said right away with the COVID thing, right? Like we've seen now that there is a feedback loop for reality, and it seems like if you followed the rules, your mental health will have suffered since then, right? So that's just one little bit. But now having this news outlet in X and in other places and in citizen journalism and Nostr and any place where you can go and not be censored, you're able to have these conversations that we weren't able to have before, right? Just take this, for example. You get the UN chief, right? Antonio Gutierrez, right? Some guy we're supposed to fucking listen to, right? Who the hell is this guy? What is this guy from the UN? So he comes out and says, right, about Gaza, he goes, we are witnessing a killing of civilians that is unparalleled and unprecedented in any conflict since I have been Secretary General, he says, right? But of course, Twitter notes comes in, our community notes comes in and says, Secretary Gutierrez took office in 2017, considered to be the deadliest year for civilians in Syria, with over 10,000 killed, right? Although the Yemen war began before Gutierrez took office, the death toll reached 377,000 in both direct and indirect deaths during his tenure, right? So this is one of the least credible people we can find, right? I mean, absolutely no way to even take this person credibly. But again, this idea of there being a feedback loop and some consequence to ignoring reality or trying to impose your own reality on what's actually happening, there's a price, right? And we're starting to see that the price of brainwashing the entire population can't be sustained. It's too expensive for even the people who are running this architecture. It's too complicated now because it is such an intricate machine. Look at what they've built, right? If there's one air gap, if there's one bit of light that comes in on Media Matters, the whole thing disintegrates. Look at this Gutierrez guy for the UN. How long has it been that people who have known the US is corrupt, the UN is corrupt to the core, You know, like myself, it's been 20 years since I've known the corruption there. And it used to be you needed arguments. Oh, but what are they doing? And it's so bad. At this point, you don't need that anymore. We have these instances. We have proof, right? And the ability to gaslight and force someone to be confused about the very things they're seeing with their eyes is going away. And it's going to get better. And weirdly, the simulation has winked on us again. Again, the simulation is winking. Now, this is something that I found strange 3 years ago. Yeah, it would have been, definitely during the election time, right? So I was talking with some friends yesterday just about how much progress we've made in being able to think and have conversations about all of this stuff. Needed a Kleenex, that's okay. But here's the simulation, right? So let me take you back to the days after the 2020 election, right? So I've told this story many times, right? Remember, I'm there and I'm looking at a business plan. I'm working for Kraken, the exchange, right? And I'm in the strategy department. So we look at new products. And if you remember the summer of 2020, a lot was going on, right? DeFi summer, they called it. So there's all these new products coming out, right? And one of my jobs was to look at FTX as a competitor and to market size them and to figure out how they're getting products to market quickly and all this stuff. And I find one product that summer around their elections, right? And I say, whoa, this is pretty interesting. What is this? It's an election prediction market. Now, coming from CoinDesk, the thing that made us at CoinDesk was we invented the price of Bitcoin, right? So that all that meant was we created a reference rate, which was a simple average of 4 exchange prices from London, New York, Tokyo, and Hong Kong. That's it. It wasn't even volume weighted because we weren't, one exchange could have a good day and it would screw up your methodology. So we couldn't get an accurate number. It was literally just a whatever the price is, straight divide them by 4, right? That's it. Add them up, divide them by 4. That's the price of Bitcoin. Very simple methodology, but it worked for us. And what happened was everyone in the world had to cite our price and use our name in a sentence, right? According to CoinDesk, the price of Bitcoin is blah, blah, blah. So that helped our profile of our business rise really quickly. Got us a lot of attention, right? So when I saw the election prediction market product that FTX had, I said the same thing. I said, this is going to be very easy because I knew in August 2020 that the US election that November was going to be a scam and that we would live a period of uncertainty after the date of the election where we didn't know who won. Now, my prediction was in that instance, when you have all these talking heads and all these idiots going, oh, I think Trump won or Biden won or blah, blah, blah. I knew that they would go to the prediction markets in a media sense and start citing them. So I said to Kraken, we got to build this because we're going to be the cited party, right? We're going to be the one sided. Now, like many things, it didn't work out. It was a short window of time, whatever. Who cares about that? But as what I predicted happened, indeed, the election was hung and things turned into exactly what I predicted. And what came out of it? FTX. No one had ever heard of FTX until then. Now, their prediction market became the main cited reference for the election. Look, they said, look, these non-sentimental people are saying Biden won. And of all the people in the world, there aren't many at this point, but of all the people in the world, I'm sitting there saying, they're biased. He's Biden's biggest donor. So no one knows that but me and a handful of people, right? And no one really cares because we're not in that environment. Everyone's getting censored. Remember what we said a few days ago? They were taking the images of the bump for votes and suppressing that the day after the election, right? So there was no way to have this conversation. And you were starting to get told you were a jerk for even doubting the election, and you're an anti-American asshole, and Trump is done, fuck off, right? So you just had to accept it. You had to accept that you were living through a stolen situation, right? You just had to accept it. Now, if you remember, at the time, they were talking about the Kraken. Remember that? The Kraken, right? So here's the simulation. As the only person in the world who understood really what was going on, right? Not many people could see it. I could see it. And so I'm sitting there saying, and then you remember who Trump's lawyer was? Sidney Powell, right? Sidney Powell. So I'm sitting there, I'm working for Kraken. She's talking about the Kraken, right? And they're both Powells, Jesse Powell and Sidney Powell, right? So I'm like, Powell, like, realize that of all the people who know what's going on, I'm in only 5 people maybe in the world understood what was happening, right? It was not a huge list. It was not a huge list. I don't know how many, but it wasn't a huge list. And so I'm sitting there and I'm literally like, the words being used and the names being said are all related to me, right? And I'm like, what is happening here? What is going on, right? So now fast forward even to last year, right? When they were taken down, right? Through some work of my own. Now I didn't break the story, but I set up the air gap between editorial and CoinDesk ownership in order for this thing to even happen in the first place, right? So my last job at CoinDesk was creating the air gap, which they're now going to put a new Wall Street Journal guy in charge of, right? Because the bullish bought CoinDesk yesterday, all cash. And one of the things they announced was their editor-in-chief that they're bringing in, who would come from the Wall Street Journal, will now be in charge of this, a relationship, because they want to preserve how amazing it was in the previous regime because we did it, right? Now, not trying to brag about something I had done or anything like that. What I'm just trying to say is I knew about SBF the whole time, and I never forgot, right? I never forgot 2020. And so when everything was going on last summer, and I was telling CoinDesk, look here, look there, there's something going on. I don't know. I heard from this person. I heard from that person, right? And, he's done, right? And I don't think it happens without X. I don't think it happens without this reference to understand how the brainwashing works, how persuasion and this kind of manipulation works. So again, I'm sitting there and I'm dealing with Kraken. Now, what I think happens to Sidney Powell is, remember the thing about her was she was an amazing lawyer, right? That's what people said. She's the best, right? She is a killer. It looks like she was naive and probably fell for a fake story to take her off the board. It looks like when she started talking about the Kraken, it was disinformation. It looks like it. That's what I saw from the start, kind of, right? My impression, and I still believe this, 99.9999999% of election fraud stuff you hear is fake. It's almost always fake, right? Because if you're going to protect an election from fraud allegations, you flood the zone with fake ones that you can disprove, thereby vaccinating yourself against any allusion to it, right? Which is why the way we talk about the elections here is much more important than what you hear out there. Anyone who's telling you, oh, look, I have a video of an election and that's proof. It's not fucking proof, right? No video that confirms your bias is proof ever. The data stuff for sure, but even that, like, who understands data. No. The way we talk about it is much more powerful and much more effective, because I'm not saying I have any answers. I'm just saying the system itself, as someone who understands Bitcoin, the system of elections itself are easily corruptible, right? Because we understand through the engineering of Bitcoin, we understand distributed databases. We understand the value proposition of Bitcoin versus any other chain, right? We understand the trade-offs. I've said it a million times, but I will always repeat it because you guys are now in charge of pushing this stuff out there. This is our job in the 2024 election, in 2024 in America, is to explain to people, not that we have proof of Georgia and cheating and Arizona. We don't know a shit, and we never will. We're never doing our own fucking research. None of that is going to happen, right? A warehouse with ballots and they're on the wrong paper, blah. No, none of that matters, right? What matters is we understand how systems are built. We just saw in Argentina, they did that whole election with paper ballots and counted them in the same day, right? And Milei won, right? Why do you even have machines? Where do they come? Who needs a machine to vote? Anyone who wants to cheat, that's who, right? The very instance of machines coming means we see cheating. Now, we saw the blueprints for what you can do the other day when that report came out on the corruptibility of the machines, right? As Bitcoiners, we understood cryptographic key, man-in-the-middle attack, right? All these are all things we get. we understand these things, right? So we don't have to have proof the election was stolen. We just have to show and explain how the system was built in the simplest terms possible. And the simplest terms possible are the trade-off between credibility and convenience was made. They made the choice for convenience. Therefore, the vote is as credible as it was convenience, right? And if you have a bunch of mail-in ballots, that's how credible it is. That's it. You don't need to know more than that. You don't need to know details. You don't have to have proof. Nothing. You just have to say the system was built like shit, right? That's it. That's all you need to know. Because the truth is, and Bitcoiners know this, anything corruptible will be corrupted, right? That's why we love Bitcoin, because it's not corruptible. We think it's not corruptible. So far, so good. But the point is that if there is the potential of corruptibility, get rid of it. It's already over, right? If the potential is there, it has happened. We love Bitcoin because we think the potential isn't there. So far, so good. So far, we have survived, right? And we haven't experienced this kind of failure. But this whole thing, is a real problem, right? And because people can't see this, they think that there's going to be some smoking gun. Maybe. I hope there is. I hope there's a smoking gun. But nevertheless, what we've learned, right, through Kraken, the Kraken, and now through understanding just how manipulated this stuff is, just how corrupted it is, we don't need proof about the 2020 elections. We don't. We understand the engineering of the system, and we are people that are going to be relied on in 2024 as everyone suffers from mental health and gets gaslit and gets rolled and gets pushed around and all of this stuff, right? We're the ones who are going to have to explain. Now, what happened yesterday is that the SEC, so I've just told you about all these untrustworthy parties, right? How many of them are there, right? So now the SEC yesterday comes after Kraken again. Now listen to what Jesse Powell says, right? So we got more Powells than we can use right now. We got the Sydney, we got the Jesse, and we're going to talk about Jerome in a second, right? Our other dude, Jerome. So it's Powells all around, right? Code reuse, guys. There's no choice, right? There's only, this is what's happening. So this is Jesse Powell's actual, how he tweeted about this. He goes, USA's top decel is back with another assault on America. The masochists haven't been happy with the beatings they've been taking in New York and are shopping for a different flavor of regdom in California. I thought we settled all their concerns for $30 million back in February. Now they're back for seconds. Message is clear. $30 million buys you about 10 months before the SEC comes around to extort you again. Lawyers can do a lot with $30 million, but the SEC knows the real fight will likely cost you $100+ million and valuable time. If you can't afford it, get your crypto company out of the US war zone. And indeed, it's a war zone, guys. World War III is in America. World War III is people versus the states. This state against state thing is not the frame that you need. It's not Israel and Palestine, Russia and Ukraine. No. It's three-letter agencies versus people, That's it. That's the war. And they're all in it together, these agencies, right? They are all absolutely in it together. Now, here's another one. This was sent to me from BTC Cassidy and the Satoshi Kid. I just was only saying Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. So he goes by BTC Cassidy and the Satoshi Kid. So great account on Twitter. Big fan of the show. One of the earliest fans we ever had. He was back in the Bitcoin Magazine days. And so he shared this with me yesterday, a Zero Hedge article, and just said, what do you think about this, right? And he says, a new type of dementia plagues America. In the United States, it is estimated that 7 million people over the age of 65 have dementia. And he's talking about how it's increasing in all kinds of age groups. Look, here's what it comes down to. I can't say there isn't the potential of an actual psychological Black Death for all the people that are getting rolled and all the people that are getting brainwashed. I don't know what actually happens to them in the end of this story. Who knows? Who could tell, right? But it can be as bad as what you think, right? It could be bad as we're hearing here, that the numbers of young people, old people whose brains are just failing them. They're just not working. It's the opposite of an increased IQ situation. But these people are falling apart, right? We heard about the people who listened to COVID directions and they're fucked up now. Now these people, right? Now, they're saying here, no, it's a bunch of fucking scientists, so it's probably a scam, right? Probably not real. But it rings true to me in the sense that, right, that there must be a cost for the shortened attention spans you get from having the psychological problems of dopamine addiction, of outrage addiction, of everything that's being peddled by the brainwashers, because it's not mentally healthy, right? It's not mentally healthy at all, obviously. It's why you end up getting these types of situations, right? It's why you end up getting, all this sort of feedback about mental health collapsing as the economy, as political systems fail, as the brainwashing increases, right? So, but there is good news, right? There is good news. It's not that bad in the sense that we're starting to see it break open a lot, right? So what did Millet say yesterday, right? So people are freaking out, right? An open letter published ahead of the election, more than 100 leading economists warned Mr. Millet's proposals could cause economic devastation and social chaos, right? And it goes on, right? There's this is from the Progressive International, right? President-elect Javier Milei confirms that he will close Argentina's central bank, privatize state-owned energy company, sell off public broadcast networks, and travel to the US and Israel before inauguration. And of course, everyone's freaking out. What an asshole. He's going to America and Israel. No more central bank. But this is where we're headed, guys. This is it. This is tearing apart the pieces of the state. We're going to rip this thing out. Now, go back to the Kraken case, right? Go back to Kraken and go back to what's going on with the SEC. What have I been arguing for a long time? And I think this is where it's headed now. The Jarkissi case, which is at the Supreme Court, right? The Jarkissi case is about the constitutionality of any federal entity having this type of adjudicative enforcement body. They're not supposed to and not allowed to have it, right? The separation of powers means you can't have a judge sitting in the executive branch, which is what you get with the SEC. It's what I've been saying since before there was Bitcoin. I argued this. Since before Bitcoin, I have been arguing that the SEC had no right to do what it was doing. And my inclination towards this was because as a law student, you learn that the securities lawyers are like the brain surgeons, right? And I would talk to these guys and I'd be like, you guys aren't that fucking smart. Like, I don't know, why are you the brain surgeons? Like, what's going on here, right? What I found out was the laws were so obscure, obfuscated, difficult to follow and read, complicated in securities law, that it made the whole realm inaccessible. It's gotten so bad that not even lay judges, so that means a normal criminal or civil judge, can understand the SEC's legal framework, which means that no one can understand it. If a lay judge can understand it, that's where you start getting into the realm of unconstitutionality. So a few years ago, this case began where this guy said, no, the SEC shouldn't do this, nor should any executive branch secretary or office of, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what department of. Yeah, any department of that comes from the executive branch. Now you can have executive branch rule making. That's fine. They can write the laws, but they can't adjudicate them. They can't be the ones that enforce and adjudicate the laws. And that's what they did. So the case says that all administrative law judges in America are unconstitutional. Now it's at the Supreme Court. And I believe what you're going to find is that everything the SEC is trying to do here is going to get thrown out and is unconstitutional. It's all garbage, right? So, so the case going forward, right? So if you didn't know what so here's what Kraken is getting in trouble for, by the way, guys. I didn't even explain that. So Kraken is getting sued again by the SEC. And what is it about? Okay, here's what it's about. An unregistered securities broker is what they're saying. Okay, get the fuck out of here, all right? We went to Wyoming and created a bank license that didn't allow us to lend money, didn't allow us to commingle funds, didn't allow us to do any of this stuff, right? We literally got a bank license, which then wouldn't be recognized by the other US states because the Federal Reserve wouldn't honor their banking deal with Kraken after we paid and bought $20 million worth of Federal Reserve stock, right? And they still said, get out of here. You can't have discount window. You can't have a master account. All we wanted was a bank account at the Federal Reserve. And once you have the charter recognized, then you're allowed to sell stocks or whatever else. You're a bank. You're allowed to do that stuff. So they say they basically make it so that the other states don't recognize us. And then they say, oh, you don't have the license. We have a fucking license, So they're going to go out and do that, right? Oh, just a second. One second. Yelling kids, yo. Okay, so they're on their way to their school thing. So anyway, the point though is that this whole thing with the SEC is double or triple corruption in the end, right? It's incompetent bureaucracies, incompetent institutions, incompetent Federal Reserve run by another Jay Powell, right? We got Jesse Powell at Kraken, we got Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve, and we got Sidney Powell in the elections, right? So we got a Powell in the private sector, a Powell in the public or fake money sector, and then one in this legal thing, right? And suddenly all of these things are starting to intersect, right? All of these stories are starting to jump on top of each other. So go to the elections, right? Now there's, we see the case, too many Powells. Yeah, too many Powells. What are the odds? We see the potential anyway for all of this change, right? But now you're starting to get the poo. I've been calling him Poo Well for a while. The shitcoiner who poos well. Now we're finding out more as well with the ability to talk about this stuff. The George Floyd piece, right? And George Floyd and the fentanyl. Right, and Derek Chauvin yesterday, the guy who was sitting in jail for the murder, right? The murder of this guy, is said, of course, the whole thing was a sham, right? So we're starting to see that the elections, the credibility of any third-party adjudicator in America right now is at an all-time low, right? And the Federal Reserve itself is starting to be not credible. BRICS meeting today, by the way. So Argentina now out of BRICS, right? But BRICS meeting today about the Gaza thing. You also have Holland, which is admitting that they're preparing for the end of the US dollar. I don't know if you guys saw this. It was on Zero Hedge. Dutch central bank admits it has prepared for a new gold standard, right? So people talking about this saying, are you ready for the new gold standard? This is Mario Stefano. Wall Street Silver reposted this. With out of control U.S. deficits and the recent plunge in the value of U.S. treasuries, a new gold standard may not be far-fetched. The Dutch central bank admits it is prepared for a financial crisis with skyrocketing gold prices and a gold standard. And in all of this news yesterday, Biden signed some executive order and Janet Yellen was out there, this takes down the deficit by $1 trillion in 10 years. Maybe maybe, dealing with a pimple on the ass of an elephant. Like, it's the smallest little thing they did yesterday, right? And of course, Yellen is there. We got it, right? So meanwhile, reality is here, right? Other countries are saying this thing ain't going to make it, right? So Americans entering 2023 with a totally new setup for what's happening in our elections, a totally new understanding of election integrity, election credibility. And so Bitcoiners in the middle of all of this, are a resource to both explain to normies what's going on with the corruption of our institutions, with the corruption of our election system, with the corruption of our media. Not many people in the world have the bird's eye view that Bitcoiners have, and are going to have to be big players in 2023, breaking this down for Americans and helping them navigate a situation where if they don't get it right, the Black Death is here for them. Like, the Kraken is also coming for them, right? So I think the Kraken that Sidney Powell originally talked about, which was a scam, is coming. And it is an understanding of just how bamboozled Americans have been for years now. And of course, this will go back to the Kennedy thing and all of that. But we're opening up now an understanding that wasn't available to us before. And again, I don't think it ends at 64. I think that'll be that's the prologue to the amount of information we have coming forward. I think this will go back. I think what we're going to find out will go into ancient history. I think it'll go into ancient history. You're even seeing now a lot of people commenting on a failure of this new Ridley Scott Napoleon movie. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's a Napoleon movie coming out, and kind of a failure in the sense that when he goes to the pyramids in Egypt, they don't treat it accurately. They make it into this thing where he was like blowing up the Sphinx with his cannons. That's not what he did. He brought all of the most important, he brought his entire court from Paris to the pyramids. That's where they found the Rosetta Stone. That's where they made real inroads into understanding our history. And that's what Napoleon was there for. He wasn't there for fucking target practice. He went to find out what in our history is fake. Did he find out? Well, the belief is that he was so overwhelmed by the presence of whatever it was he experienced in the pyramids that it changed him forever. And indeed, everything we now understand with the Rosetta Stone and all that came from that trip. Now, to treat it like a military operation is incorrect, right? Like, that shows just how much shit has been piled onto history that doesn't really allow us to understand it. If we could interview Napoleon today about why he went there, I'm sure the answer would be different, right? Speaking of Napoleon, just read a book called The Emperor's Revenge. Very entertaining. Yeah, I'll check it out, Jebby. So there you go. We got big changes, guys. I can't find the Napoleon quote, but indeed, they screwed it up. They screwed it up. So that's it, guys. I think that the All Eyes, as I call the got woke treatment by Ridley Scott in the Red Shield. Yeah, did he? Let out the Red Shield. Napoleon get woke treatment and Ridley let out the Red Shield. I didn't know that. Yeah. Anyway, no good, huh? Cognitive impairment can happen when you have too many conflicting ideas in your head. Exactly. Yeah. And that's what we're seeing. Yeah. That's what we're seeing. That's it. Yeah, that's what's happening. Cecil Rhodes has a vision that's that's the version of hell that we find ourselves in. Don't trust anything remotely British. You want to watch a good movie on how corrupt the UN is? Yeah, I mean, I've known for a long time. Right? I found Bitcoin during COVID. Wow. I think the COVID rules affected everyone, but for me, it was an awakening. Not sure if you can consider that. No, I don't. The minute COVID hit, I said, "This is their ending. This is it. This is accelerationism that we need." I believed correctly that COVID would be the best orange pilling instance we ever found. I honestly, within the first, I knew that by January. I knew it by January. I could tell exactly what was going to break in January 2020 because, I had the benefit of having Balaji sort of messaging us all the time at CoinDesk about what was happening in our event and all that stuff. So I had a little bit of extra private insight into what was going on, and I was able to do some calculations or predictions. The moment I canceled the event, I didn't can, but the moment it was, we canceled Consensus that year, all the cascade started happening. And I mean, I didn't know it was going to be an election scam yet, but it sort of fit in my view of how we would learn about stuff. So there you go. There you go. Yeah, they did. Yeah, it looks like it. Not in the movie yet. COVID saved my life. I was an alcoholic. Wow, 100 pounds and bought a house. Amazing, Johnny. Beautiful story, my man. Yeah, I think honestly, like even myself, for like I knew about diet and stuff, but I've said it before. I was living in New York. I wasn't even close to batting 500 or 400 on the seed oil thing. Like at home, yeah, but I ate out all the time. I didn't even think about pizza or anything. So indeed, Rico, beautiful stuff, man. Really, really not easy. It wasn't easy, right? People had a choice in COVID, and it went the wrong way for a lot of people, unfortunately. And I wish it, I guess that's the one change that I had after COVID. An important change. Before COVID, I thought with Bitcoin, we can save everyone. We could basically just a slight fork in humanity and the golden age would be right here. We'd all be in Bitcoin. It would take a bit of time, but not that it wouldn't matter. We would just be a romp over history, and in decades, we would, totally take over. What I had to face in COVID was that some people aren't going to make it. I hadn't accepted that yet. Now, I'm not sacrificing people, right? Like I'm not saying, we can't aim for the highest possible, but I hadn't even let in my mind that there were people who just wouldn't make it, right? Just not going to make it. I've, had to come to that conclusion in COVID because you could see there was a category of people that I don't think are ever going to take the plunge. So that's why I've come to the conclusion that there will be some form of psychological Black Death for a portion of humanity. I hope it's small. But I think it looks a little bit like what we saw in that Zero Hedge article, just cognition that drops to such a level that we're not dealing with people with their full faculties and making bad decisions, and they might be a lot of Canadian healthcare coming. Right? Might be a whole bunch of Canadian healthcare coming. Well, what do you guys think about the idea of Bitcoin having messianic? Of course, Jose. Yeah, of course. I put it in my book, just one piece, right? But it's Bitcoiners, like Christians, will accept anyone who wants savings. So it's not little. It's not little. So anyone who wants savings is welcome. Yeah, too dependent on the system. Yeah, I don't think they can make it. Yeah. It could just be, yeah, of course it is. Of course it is that, Jose. Of course it is just us projecting patterns. But that's all we do. That's literally all we do. We are pattern recognition machines. You can't stop it, right? It's like, when people judge people for hunting and stuff like that, well, humans, that's what they are. How can you how can you judge someone for being what we are? Now, I get it. Like, I don't want to go hunt a grizzly bear. It's too easy. Like, I don't want to hunt a polar bear. You know how you hunt a polar bear? You stand outside and they'll hunt you and then you kill them. Stupid, right? So Yeah, I get why people would criticize killing animals like that, like a lion. Like, what do you know? I get if there's a bad lion that needs to be killed. I wouldn't complain about someone killing a lion. So I'm just trying to say why I get it. But this whole thing of like, I see it in Montreal, like, oh, hunters, what? That's human beings. Like, so we can't be criticized for being exactly who we are. And that's why we got to have some empathy for the people who have been brainwashed here, because the truth is, it is easy to brainwash anyone, me, you, anybody, right? We don't have really protection against that stuff. You can choose a better system that doesn't allow the amount of carpet bombing, brainwashing that we live in today. But the truth is, you're a pattern recognition machine. You can't stop it. It would be like saying stop breathing or blinking your eyes, or you can't, right? And then the scam is, and this is why we're so easy to manipulate. And this is the Christian part too, right? And I believe this is absolutely Christian, right? You're a pattern recognition machine, but you're terrible at it. We're terrible at it, right? So it doesn't take much before you see a pattern. And so we're all sinners in that sense. We're not good at the thing we were made to do, like our operating system, and we're not good at it, right? So you must have pattern recognition, but you will never be good enough. You will be too easily swayed by patterns. The simplest patterns can sway you. Like I've said before, I've done it before, right? 1, 3, 5, 7, right? You can't stop yourself. And that's a tiny pattern. That means nothing, right? So that part of it is where all the trouble comes from. Truthfully, that's where all the trouble comes from. We're pattern recognition machines, and we suck at it. Terrible, right? The writer Philip K. Dick. That's what he said, right? And this is sort of that simulation thing, right? So Philip K. Dick said we are all one organism, but the memory coils are broken. And indeed, humans don't have very trustworthy memories. We're filled with false memories and filled with hallucinations to fill in the gaps in our mind and all of these things. So that's where it's at, right? So we definitely are. Bitcoin separates psyops from reality in the sense that it allows a feedback loop from the unconscious to the conscious, both on the unseen to the seen. Just like in economics, right? You as we've said many times, a nation state or a state or whatever, a community has a collective conscious and a subconscious that it gets from the collection of humans that make it up. And Bitcoin allows us to have the proper feedback loop and to perform individuation, which we must do. We have to manifest or manage the different personalities inside each of us, and the different wants and fears inside of each of us. And so it allows us to do that healthy, right? The problem with the dollar, not in its original form. In its original form, it did much like Bitcoin, but entropy set in. Entropy in the physics, like you can tell. Entropy can be witnessed when you look at an old picture. I knew this already in the 90s, right? When you'd look at a picture in the 90s and then you'd look at a picture from the 70s, style doesn't really transfer, right? And the quality of the print, you could tell the passage of time, and that is witnessing the effects of entropy. You can see it as well in comedy, right? Comedy doesn't survive time at all, right? Try and find a laugh from the 1960s and 70s. It's stupid. It's not funny at all. So the difference in being able to so already in the 90s, I had this imagination that the pictures we all in the 90s, we would have the throwaway cameras, and the pictures, your clothes were modern. If you weren't around for the 90s, let me tell you, it was the days before the digital cameras. So you couldn't just see the picture, you get them developed and all that. But the point was, I was already able to trick my mind as an experiment. And I've done this my whole life, tricking my mind, thinking that the thing I'm seeing that is new will one day be old, and then I can already impose that entropy of time passing onto the element. So I was able to imagine a 90s picture as old, as a mental exercise. Now, the reason you do that is because already I believed in the 90s that things like evolution would become a joke one day, and that no one would believe it because it would sound so stupid, right? And indeed, we're there, right? So the ideas even of the 90s are becoming, they look dumb, right? So the worse your memory, the better your marriage. Well, mine's okay. So we're doing great. All right. The next gen NPC will not even be able to speak. Yeah, it might not be able to. Yeah. It looks like they're doing a new Planet of the Apes movie, by the way. Huh? And that'll be about that, the humans that can't even speak. Anyone own MicroStrategy just for walking around money when it costs a ton to move your Bitcoin lost in a boat accident? Bitcoiners have the best propaganda. Yeah. They will mumble and shriek themselves all the way to the maid clinic like a parade of slow zombies. Yep. Bugs were the disinfo. It's Soylent Green. Yeah. Johnny Rico is the man. He is. The bugs and the bug men are doomed. The bug men are very doomed, guys. We're winning. The Kraken is here. I think that's what it comes down to, is that everything we heard from Sidney Powell 3 years ago about a Kraken, and the answer is Kraken. The answer is the skepticism we have towards all third-party entities in America, anything propagating the federal government, anything propagating what we see before us. World War III is these entities, the SEC, all of these things against people, and we're going to win, right? So Kraken, by beating, I think the SEC's death is now a guarantee. I think the Jarkissi case is going to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is going to smash them in the face, and the federal government is going to have to be remade after this, right? So there you go. I love your imposing entropy trick. I do that with 3D rendered animation. Yeah. It's important to do. You can sort of convince yourself that the thing you're looking at will be unstylish one day. And once you practice that, it's actually a big help, right? Because once you see why a thing would become unstylish or whatever, you can actually start seeing where things are going a little bit. It's not foolproof. It's just a little trick that I use, right? You are in fact the man. Yeah. All right, team. That's all I got for today. My kids are heading to their homeschool pod for the day, so I'm going to go wish them a good day. And I was going to go to Vermont today and shut the house down, but I've changed my plans. Something was supposed to arrive in the mail, didn't make it, so I've got to do another day. But I'm going to try and get there tomorrow to get my turkey from Vermont for Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving's coming, guys. We love Thanksgiving, right? As much as we're down on the American gang, we'll never give up on our beautiful Thanksgiving. I just read Starship Troopers a few months ago. It's a great book. It's amazing. All right, team. Peace. Have a great day, everyone.